A new scientific analysis has quietly rewritten part of Europe's ancient story. The 6-ton altar stone at the heart of Stonehenge did not come from southwest Wales, as long believed. Its mineral fingerprint points north. Far north. To northeastern Scotland. This discovery is more than a geological surprise. It hints at something deeper. Something written not in stone, but in human biology. Because Scotland was never simple. Not in its language. Not in its legends. And certainly not in its DNA. For decades, the Scottish genome was described as mostly Celtic, with a splash of Viking blood for drama. But modern genetic analysis has shattered that tidy narrative. Hidden inside bones preserved in peat bogs, caves, and ancient graves are biological records of people history barely remembers. Dark-skinned Ice Age hunter-gatherers. Bronze Age migrants from the continent. Iron Age tribes later called the Picts. And faint genetic echoes from places far beyond Britain, North Africa, the Middle East, even the Arctic fringe. Some of these genetic signatures should not be here. And yet they are. Preserved in isolated islands, mountain glens, and coastal villages. Passed silently from organ to organ, cell to cell, for more than 10,000 years. This is a story of survival and replacement. Of migrations never written down. Of cultures that vanished from history, but not from the human genome. So what makes Scottish DNA so unusual? Why did it resist the genetic tides that reshaped most of Europe? And what does it reveal about who the Scots really are? If the idea that blood remembers what history forgets gives you chills, subscribe and stay with Genetic Story, where ancient mysteries are decoded through genetics. And if this story resonates with you, hit like. It helps these buried histories reach others who still carry fragments of the past. Now, let's begin at the very beginning. Long before clans, kilts, or Celtic myth, Scotland was frozen. Around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, massive glaciers buried the land. No forests. No people. Only ice, stone, and meltwater carving the valleys we now call glens. As the climate warmed, the land began to breathe again. Trees spread northward. Rivers filled. Animals returned. And human bodies followed. The first people to enter post-ice Scotland were small groups of hunter-gatherers moving north from continental Europe. They were not Celtic. They were not what modern imagination calls Scottish. Genetic reconstruction suggests they had dark skin, blue eyes, and dark hair. A combination common in Mesolithic Europe. They lived along coasts and rivers, hunting deer and boar, fishing, and crafting tools from bone and flint. Archaeology shows where they camped. DNA shows who they were. And what stunned researchers was not just that their genetic material survived. It was where it survived. In remote highland valleys and Hebridean islands, fragments of these ancient genomes still exist today. Rare. Faint. But real. This persistence is the result of genetic drift. Scotland's geography acted like a biological vault. Mountains, rough seas, and scattered islands isolated small populations for centuries. Their organs passed down ancient DNA with minimal outside interference. While Europe's cities absorbed wave after wave of invasion and interbreeding, parts of Scotland remained biologically quiet. And because of that, some Scots today still carry genetic markers older than farming itself. But preservation is only part of the story. Around 4,500 years ago, a new population arrived. Archaeologists call them the Beaker people, named for their distinctive pottery. But pottery wasn't their real impact. Their DNA was. Originating from Central Europe, these migrants brought metalworking, agriculture, and radically different genetic profiles. Within a few centuries, they replaced the majority of male lineages across Britain. In some regions, up to 90%. This was not sudden violence. It was gradual biological replacement. Intermarriage. Cultural dominance. Reproductive advantage. Yet even then, the oldest bloodlines did not fully disappear. In isolated northern regions, fragments endured. Scotland became biologically layered. Ice Age survivors beneath Bronze Age newcomers. Ancient and recent DNA coexisting in the same bodies. As the Bronze Age unfolded, societies became more structured. Trade networks expanded. Permanent settlements formed. Languages shifted. Early Celtic tongues arrived, not as mythic warriors, but as gradual cultural and genetic influences. And from this mixing emerged one of history's most misunderstood groups. The Picts. They carved symbols into stone. They terrified Roman scouts. They left no written language of their own. For centuries, historians wondered where they came from, and where they went. DNA has answered both. Genetic evidence from Iron Age burial sites shows the Picts were not invaders. They were locals. Descendants of earlier Scottish populations already living there for centuries. They did not vanish. They merged. As Gaelic culture spread, Pictish identity faded, but the genes remained. Today, modern Highland Scots still carry traces of Pictish ancestry, especially in isolated regions where geography shielded communities from constant mixing. But Scotland's genome was not shaped only from within. The Roman Empire reached its southern edge in Britain during the 1st century CE. Though Rome never conquered Scotland, it left biological fingerprints. Roman soldiers came from across the empire. Spain. Syria. North Africa. Some settled temporarily. Some formed families. And faint traces of Mediterranean and Middle Eastern ancestry still appear in parts of southern Scotland today. Then came the Vikings. From the late 8th century onward, Norse settlers reshaped the genetic map of Scotland's coasts and islands. In Orkney and Shetland, Viking Y chromosome lineages became dominant. In some areas, more than half of modern male ancestry traces back to Norse settlers. These were not just raiders. They were farmers, husbands, and founders. Later still came the Normans, blending Viking, Frankish, and British ancestry into Scotland's southern elite. Family names that now feel purely Scottish carry DNA from across Europe. And yet, something surprising happened inside Scotland itself. Clans were not always families. Modern genetic testing shows many clan names represent social alliances, not shared ancestry. People joined clans for protection, land, or survival. Only some clans trace back to a single biological founder. Once again, geography mattered. The Highlands and Islands preserved ancient genetic signatures found nowhere else in Europe. DNA from Mesolithic foragers. Bronze Age migrants. Norse settlers. All layered within single populations. Today, Scottish DNA exists far beyond Scotland. Carried abroad during clearances, famine, colonization, and war. From Canada to Australia, millions unknowingly carry fragments of this deep genetic history. Modern testing can trace ancestry not just to Scotland, but to specific islands and glens. Because those places were isolated long enough for their DNA to become unique. Even rare genetic traces from North Africa or the Middle East still surface occasionally. Biological echoes of empires, traders, and travelers long forgotten. Scotland's DNA is not a straight line. It is a tapestry. Woven from migration, isolation, adaptation, and survival. Shaped by stone. Preserved by landscape. Carried by organs that remember what history forgot. If this journey through genetics and deep time changed how you see Scotland, subscribe to Gene Story. We uncover the ancient stories still written in your DNA. And tell us in the comments below. Has your own ancestry ever revealed something unexpected? A lost region. A forgotten lineage. Or a connection buried deeper than you ever imagined?